Now we're going to start work on modifying the Jimny, but the funny thing is it's looking for this squeak first, and I've got a feeling, I just don't know. I'm going to check the gears in the diff, but I've got a feeling it could be down to just oil on a drive shaft coupling or something like that. It sounds silly, but sometimes it can be something as simple as that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start work on the rear first, and we're going to flip the suspension, and I am going to remove, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 springs. I'm going to remove 2. I'm not going to remove them all like some do, but it will be a case of just how it goes with it. But like I said, on the way I'm going to have a look at the chassis and just oil and grease, and hopefully it sounds better when we're finished, and test it. Now, to get to the centre transfer box is not proving easy. I've took off the side parts and I've tried bending the chassis apart to get it to pop out, and I think the only way I can work on this is by literally taking the whole chassis out. So I'm going to look at see how it goes together, and hopefully I can. I've only got to drop the steering off, hold a fault at the front. And I'll be truthful, unlike the Rock Hobbies, quite a bit of this has been loose, which is not a good thing. Yeah, there we go, the steering's off. So now I'm going to see where it screws on and just take the whole chassis off, so I can work on it all in one. You know, it'll be the body out the way, and we should be able to do it, because the only thing connecting to the main chassis bars should be, in theory, the steering, but there could be trouble up the front part because it's screwed on as well. So I'm going to start removing screws from, well, I'm going to have a look in the manual, see if it says anything. This is the great thing. Is there a strip down? So it tells you how to do things, but does it tell you how to take the epoxy body off? And I'm a bit suspect about some of these couplings. I don't think they're going to stay together, so they will be taken apart. Well, there's the truth of it. There is no way, I think, in the manual telling you how to take the top off. Shows suspension strip down, the centre gearbox. There's a planetary gear set, is there? Yeah, it seems to be. But otherwise, the manual is tantamount to useless. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I don't know, I'm going to try and see what's connected at the back, which I think it could be these two here, these two here. So what I've done is I've got a tray out to try and do this. But like I said, where I'm uncertain with everything on this, because the only other point of problem could be there's a dog bone to get back in on the centre of the chassis. So I'm going to say that is one in. There's screws there, there's screws here. So we'll, like I said, we'll take these two and see if that's the back off a bit. Because like I said, I don't, you know, it's getting the box out is the problem. So we're constantly changing between 2 and 2.5. So I think these are 2 in the rear that hold. and just hope it starts separating. That's all I can do. Like I said, with no proper instructions. Right, could be the bumper is connected, so we need to release possibly 2 screws on the bumper, maybe more. So there's a couple of little screws in the corner. There we go. That was 6 screws. 2 here, 2 inside the chassis, 2 here, and we've completely released the rear. Now we've got to try and get the front wheels off, which I don't really know how to do. And that is truthful. So I'll stop the camera, and once I've got the wheels off we can look at what's left to remove the rest of the chassis. Now to get the front off, I've already removed the screw from that side, but to try and split the chassis, you've now got to remove the 2 screws just above the headlamps. And then there's a 2.5 which is here just above the steering, you can't miss it, and that should, there we go, we are separated, but we're not separated. Yeah, you've got to separate the wires off to get it apart, but at least we're going to have the whole chassis to work on. So let's get that out and get the chassis cleaned up a bit. But you can get the whole body off. I think I'll redo the wiring and try and make it tidier than this. But there we go, the body is completely off. And this is what we're left with. I did take some screws out the bumper. But how you get it off, I've got no idea. I'll put those ones back in. So now we're going to get the transfer box out and do that first. And then, like I said, oil all the joints, check them for anything loose, and then we'll see how we go from there. But I think we'll be alright. Now I've took the cover off. There's a couple of bearings in it. There's 2 short screws here and there's 2 very long ones here. There's not an excessive amount of grease, but it's a preset pitch, so we're going to go a bit further inside and have a look and check it. Underneath there's another 2 screws, so we'll see how this comes apart. It was greased, but not like I would. Yeah, there's a couple of more, well, there might be 4 more countersunks. Yeah, because I want to check the motor, see if it has is it fixed or is it adjustable. Looks a pretty sturdy gearbox, so I can't knock that. So this is turning out to be more of a strip down than actually working on it. Right, there's the shaft from the inside, there's one from here, which we'll put straight back on. Straight away. As for setting the spur, oh, I see how you've got to do it. You've got to pop the pin from inside to get to the spur gear. So you've got to remove the inner gear and a little pin from this side. That's for that gear. That releases the shaft where we can put the gear back on, and we can put it roughly into place and check if you can hear that. Holding it roughly straight, there is a good adjustment, but we're going to add some grease. So add some grease, and that will run in itself. Then put the outer case back on. Make sure you put it the right way. The fins are nearer the front, if I'm right. And then we can put the 4 screws back in. And that's that done. Then we'll put the pin and the cog back on and the other parts. It's not too hard, but it looks a pretty good gearbox, though that gear is looking very dry. But I can't fault the mesh, really, I'll be truthful. Now there's a rattle there. I'm happy with that. So all you've got to do is put these 4 countersunks back in, the pin, the gear and the slipper clutch, and a bit more grease. And that's one gearbox checked. So there's nothing I can see damaged while it's making that noise. All I can think, it might have been lubrication or something. But we will see. Now the tricky part, I'm going to put the light on because I can't see. We've got to get the pin back in. And that's where a good fine set of pliers like these are very useful. Hold it right at the tip. Just slip it into the hole till it's central and get the gear on. Make sure that locates. And then put a blob of grease on. Just add it in small increments and keep turning it. But that seems to me a good enough mesh. So now all you have to do is put this cover back on. It can only go one way. And refit the 4 screws. Now I've taken the centre section out, the transfer box, and it does seem rattly. There's nothing I can see untoward. So it's only a case of putting a bit of oil in there, wouldn't hurt, and checking it for grease. So I'm going to leave the shafts on because that will keep everything in place, and just split the gearbox. Let me get the screws out and we'll go from there. The 4 screws are out, so we'll... I've got to take a drive shaft off. And I'm an idiot. Yeah, because one shaft goes all the way through, so we'll just take one off. Hopefully it will undo. Yeah, that's come undo it. Done okay. we can have a look at the couplings, because I don't think there's much to them. But here's the gearbox reveal. That might explain the squeak. The centre gearbox is completely bone dry. There is not a millimetre or a microbe of grease in the thing. Might explain why we were having squeaky noises. It hasn't damaged the gears. These gears are pretty tough looking. But there's plenty in there now. So it shows there can be issues through just sheer lack of grease. Because sounds better already. So could that be the culprit? Like I said, I won't know exactly what the culprit is because we're doing everything on this now. But this won't be the suspension drop. It's just going to end up the tear down of the transmission, I think, because all I'm going to do is check it all through and put it back together, because this is going to be a long video. So get this back together, get this part in, and then we'll go on to the axles. Well, it's just 4 little 1.5mm screws, well, hex screws to remove. I'm checking the mesh and it's good. It's got a little bit of gooey grease on it, but as you know me, I'm going to put my grease on. So so far I've found no damage to the gears. But there's nothing wrong with the meshing. So I'm going to look at the front one and see if that is it for this video. There we go, that's the front one off. It's a bit notchy, but I can't find nothing wrong. I don't really want to start ripping the whole axle apart at this stage. So hopefully it just clears up after time. Actually, it could have been me. No, it actually is not too bad. It is a bit rougher, but I had the drive shaft at a bit too much of an angle. So I'm putting this back together, and basically we have now completely stripped out everything. We've lubricated everything. Everything has had a coat of grease. So hopefully that squeaking noise, or what it was like, it just clears up and it gets better with running, because I can't physically see anything wrong, to be truthful. The squeak could have been the couplings, but they have been treated with sewing machine oil. I've got a little bottle there. It's a really light oil. So hopefully that's it. So I'm going to get it back together, and in the next video we will flip the axles, or flip the springs, and we will do the servo linkage, and I'll show how to put the body back on, because I took off more than I needed, because it proved out it was easier to take the whole body off ish. I'm going to put it as an ish because it wasn't easy. But there we go, it's back together, and that concludes this video.